We are in week 2 of the Precept Ministries Precept upon Precept study of Nehemiah, the rebuilding, revival, and restoration of the people of God. Week 2 covers chapters 3 through 5 of Nehemiah. In chapter 3, you get into that, and you really start kind of just, this person started working on this part of the wall of Jerusalem. They're rebuilding. Nehemiah was the wine bearer of the king of Persia at the time, and he got the call of God on his heart to go rebuild the wall of Jerusalem because it was in rubble since the Babylonian destruction of it and everything. So I have this map of the city wall of Jerusalem, and it shows all of the different parts that Nehemiah finished. And you notice as you're reading through chapter 3 that he lists off the wall going counterclockwise around it, which is interesting because the enemies of Israel, of Jerusalem, were all up here mostly to the north and the north west. So he starts rebuilding that part first, and each of the verses throughout the chapter 3 lists off the different people that helped him. And it's important for us to remember, we can't do this alone. Whatever God has asked you to do, to rebuild or to restore or to work on, he wants you to do it with others. Corporate prayer, corporate fellowship with others, corporate work, working with other people. Because the body of Christ is a body where you're supposed to be unified. And it shows different people from different cultures, different backgrounds. These people have been exiled into different lands, and they've all come back together now. And they're being called by God to rebuild. And they're given that talent, that ability, that skill. Even the daughters of Jerusalem were rebuilding. It wasn't just the men. There's daughters listed in there too. So I find that interesting, that the work of the temple was redone because the people had the heart to do it. Their hearts were set upon getting the work done. So what is it that God is wanting to do in your life this year, this month, today, this week, whatever it is? Where is he wanting to work with you? Me, I want him to continue to grow my life, grow in me, my character, my life, who I am, my abilities as a teacher, my skills as a pastor, as a friend, as a person, as a husband, as a father, to be a better parent than I was a year ago, to be a better husband than I was a year ago, constantly growing. I want all of us to constantly be growing. Get into the next chapter. And chapter 4 mentions, again, the enemies of Nehemiah, the enemies of Israel and of Jerusalem, the ones that were coming against Nehemiah's plans to rebuild with, anger, really, really mean about it. They were mocking the builders. They're saying basically, if a fox were to jump on the wall that you're rebuilding, it would crumble. And I mean like a fox, okay? This tiny little kitty right here, this is a cat, okay? It says, if she were to jump on your wall, it would crumble, right? Say hi, Chloe. Yeah. What are you doing? Okay, you can go back and lay back down again, okay? But anyways, that's what I'm saying. Good visual there. But they were mocking them, the anti-Jewishness it's not anything new. This didn't come out in the turn of the century or anything. This has been around forever. People have just not liked them. And they were mocking him. And, Nehemiah's response is like, Lord, return this upon them. Do not forgive them for their sin. Return their reproach on their own head. Give them for plunder. I don't recommend that you pray like that because, God does want us to forgive our enemies. He does want us to, to love our enemies. Love those who persecute you, right? Chloe, sweetie, that's no. I should not have woke her up. Anyway, the main thing is here, though. Go to God about your struggle with your enemies, with the opposition coming against you. Be a person of character. Be a person of humility. And go before God. Bring your frustrations and your anger before him. Let him take care of you. Let him take care of them. Give it up to him if you're mad and irritated and all that. Because he's going to grow the walls. He's going to help you rebuild the walls. Whatever walls they are. You pray, continually praying, against the enemy's attacks. And Nehemiah sets up guards. He has the people protected. He protects his people. He's a good shepherd. He's a good leader. He's a good commander of the army, but also leader of the good governor. He basically says, you guys need to protect yourselves and defend yourselves. So get a sword while you're building, build with a sword. And they even took their swords to the watering hole, to get drinks, even on their breaks. That's how bad it was. The tension between Nehemiah and the people and the enemies was big. They were like, we're going to go kill you if we see you guys in the streets and you're trying to rebuild. They're constantly coming at him. Even though Nehemiah had the blessing of the king of Persia, they still had that opposition. I said, then they has the people also get a trumpet, because they knew the people were separated, one side of the wall and the other, as they were rebuilding. So they would blow trumpets to each other to remind each other that they're there and what the cause they're fighting for. Music, and this is a good take into worship right here, into a good message on worship, because the importance of music. And I love music. I'm a huge fan of music, concerts, and anytime I can get in there and just listen to the radio or iPod, whatever songs. We were at a Garth Brooks concert, and I was just pouring over the music, just enjoying it, letting it thrive through me. And I heard God telling me, this is how I want you in front of me, praising me with the excitement and the energy that you pour into yourself when you're at a concert or listening to your favorite artist. That's the kind of energy I want you to have worshiping me. Okay? Be undignified. Because the whole world, it doesn't matter. It's between you and him when you come before him in worship. Music also brings us together. It's universal. It worships something or someone. No matter what, that's what music does, and it gives us a spiritual uplifting, reminds us of who God is, because it honors him. Worship honors God, puts him where he belongs, and honors him. And if you ever get into where you're like, you don't like the worship songs playing in church, like, well, they're not for you, they're for him. So just let that go. Keep going, because music brings us together. Opposition, mocking, conspiracy against the Jews, approaching opposition with prayer. He armed the builders so that they can defend themselves against the enemy. It's important. And then, there's a couple verses you can go to in the book of John chapter 15, talking about how the world will hate you because it hates me. In John chapter 16 and John chapter 17, I'll talk about that, how Jesus came not to bring peace to the world, but to bring peace to you, to help you while you're in the world. He didn't take you out of the world, but he's going to help you while you're in the world, keeping you from the evil one, sanctifying you in truth, in the word. So hold on to the word and seek peace in Jesus to help us through life's problems, because the world is going to hate you. When you put yourself on the line, you do what I did, last year, spend the entire year going from Genesis to Revelation through the Bible. You're going to have to expect some form of persecution, some kind of spiritual attack from that. Press on. Press through it. Because that is good. God is with you. When you push into him, you're going to find him bringing you in and holding you tight. That's important. Chapter 5 is a little disturbing, because after a while, the people were they were poor, they were suffering, and they had no choice, in their opinions, but to sell themselves to the state and to others. They were selling themselves to each other. Brothers were selling themselves to each other into, slavery, into bondage. They were going back into that which they had been freed from. And they were mistreating each other. Nehemiah was like, stop mistreating each other. You guys are brothers. You can't do this. We can't be, it says they were enacting usury upon each other. That's like illegally, charging high interest for loans and other things. And that's what the people were doing. And Nehemiah's like, you need to stop that. Don't you fear God? And then he gives his own personal testimony at the end of chapter 5. He says, I have never, taken the allotted amount that the governor's given me, to live by. I've never taken from anybody else. What I have had, I've given to other people. What I have been given, I've given to other people to take care of them. And it's pretty bold. It's pretty amazing that he did that. So between chapters 4 and 5, chapter 4 talks about the enemies that you have outside, the enemies that are attacking us from the outside of the church and of the people of God. And then the ones inside, chapter 5, the ones inside are our own brothers and sisters, and we need to lend to each other, as if we are a sojourner, a fellow wanderer, fellow heir of God on this earth, not like a slave, but God's servants. Chapter 13 of John reminds us to love one another. 1 John chapter 3 says love with deed and truth. Open your heart to those who have need. Love the poor. Give to those who have need. Acts chapter 4 talks a lot about that. When the church was starting out, they gave to each other as they had need. Nehemiah was wise. He was thoughtful, and he knew that he needed to help his fellow Jews because they weren't doing a good job helping each other. And we need to remember that God is awesome, and he will fight for us. We also need to fight for each other too. Fear God, respect him, praise him, put him in honor in the place that he belongs. Don't spend so much time worrying about what people say about us. Don't let them speak into your life. Let God speak into your life. Don't let the enemy speak things about you. Let God speak things to you that are truth. And that's why it's important for us to get into the Word, because the Word is truth. And that's where we find his message for our lives. He is fighting for us to rebuild the walls of defense to keep the enemies out of our lives. So that we can say, as Nehemiah does, remember me, O my God, for good, according to all that I have done for this people. In the next lesson, next week, we're going to be doing chapters 6 and 7 of Nehemiah. So join me for that. Thank you, my friends.